Cooking with Kyle. You already started. Alright, thank you everyone for joining us on the first annual... Man, hold on, sorry. La 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 la. Thanks everyone for joining us on Cooking with Kyle. We have a great night ahead of you. Tonight we're going to be making gingerbread cookies, a staple for every Christmas holiday cookie tray. And we also have some shrimp in the fridge. And we're going to make a nice sauteed shrimp with a little garlic and white wine sauce. So tune in. It's going to be a great night ahead. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to make tonight are the gingerbread cookies. So gingerbread cookies are pretty simple to make. A lot of people don't do it. They just go with the sugar cookie or the chocolate chip cookie. But if you put a nice little 4-inch gingerbread man on that cookie tray, you could really, really win over your coworkers and family and friends. So, pretty much 2 easy steps when it comes to cooking your gingerbread cookies. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our butter and our brown sugar, and we're going to cream those, cream these together. I'll show you what I'm talking about when I say just kind of cream them. I can't use that word. All right. The brown sugar and butter are now in, and we're just going to kind of turn this on. Make sure it's locked, because otherwise the bowl will go flying. So just an easy stir. Oh, that's what you want to see. So you can see like a kind of a creamy consistency. It's going to look a little rough, but once we add our other ingredients, then we'll be good to go. So, next step, in another bowl, you're going to take your flour. Now we're going to use 2 2/3 cup of all-purpose flour. So you throw that in the bowl, and then we're going to add in a bunch of our seasoning and spices. Okay, so the remainder dry ingredients will go in. We have cinnamon, we have allspice, we have nutmeg, ground ginger, of course, being the main ingredient, some salt, and then baking soda, not baking powder. So the next ingredients that we're going to put in here to blend together, whisk together, I should say, is the molasses. It's going to add some thick consistency, but we're also going to put in some water and then an egg as well. So get the molasses in there as much as you can. I only really use one type of molasses, and that is Brer Rabbit molasses, and it's because it has a little rabbit head on the person. So Brer Rabbit, most trusted molasses in the business. And in goes an egg. Whole egg in there. If you get some shells in there, don't worry about it. You can fish those out later. And then finally, we are going to do some water, and here's the water. Nope, that's not the water. Okay. Sometimes you might have to stop it and then go around the edges just to make sure you get an even consistency when you mix it together. Alright, that should do it. And next, we're going to add in our flour, or our dry ingredients, I should say. Before you put that in, make sure just to kind of whisk them all together, just so they're kind of evenly distributed. A little at a time. Start slow until you get it all in there. I keep forgetting to lock it. Lock your blenders. It's a PSA announcement. PSA announcement. That's what A stands for. So it'd be me saying PSA. A? Oh, you know what I'm saying though? Like public service announcement. I said PSA or PSA announcement. It's me saying public service announcement. It doesn't make sense. A. Step. We're gonna put it in the refrigerator. We need it to cool for about 30 minutes or so, just so it sets up a little bit. So what I like to do is cut the dough in half, so you're not using the whole thing. It just takes less time in the fridge, and it'll set up a lot easier. So take your first half, get some just some plastic wrap, and you're gonna throw that in the middle of the plastic wrap. All right, so take that first half, lay out some plastic wrap. You're gonna put it just in the center, and just like you would kind of any dough. Again, at this point, your hands are probably getting pretty sticky, but do the best you can. Just kind of wrap it up in a ball. Make sure it's wrapped on all sides, and then set it aside, and we'll put that in the fridge here in a second. Dope. All right. So while gingerbread is in the refrigerator cooling down, we are going to make our main dish tonight. We are going to make shrimp with a little garlic, butter, white wine sauce. So this is something real easy that you guys can do any night. You just got to make sure you have some shrimp. You can buy those frozen bags. You can get fresh shrimp. It really doesn't matter. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to kind of preheat our pan over here. So you need to have a cast iron skillet, something besides a non-stick pan. Turn it on high heat. Let it sit there for about 3 minutes. Just kind of get that heat going. So we're going to cook this at a very high temperature. So next thing you want to do is get your garlic kind of all chopped up here. We're not going to mince it or cut it real fine. We're just going to kind of cut it in slivers. It's really just going to add that flavor to the garlic. Okay, so the pan has been on high heat for about 30 minutes. So what you're going to do is we're going to add our olive oil now to the hot pan. This is kind of rare. You don't always add olive oil to a hot pan, but we're going to do it anyways. Alright, so in goes 1/4 cup of olive oil. You could use vegetable oil, really any kind of oil that you want. You're not going to need a lot of flavor with that. So olive oil goes in, and then directly in goes our shrimp. So with this recipe, we're going to keep the shells on. So just kind of scatter the shrimp all around. And then we're just going to kind of saute these a little bit. Again, so in goes the shrimp, and then you're going to give it a lid, and you're going to keep the lid on it. Alright, so after about 30 seconds to a minute, you're going to take your garlic, again, just kind of finely chopped. It doesn't have to be perfect, you don't have to mince it or anything like that, just all shapes and sizes will work. So once you get to about 30 seconds to a minute, you want to flip your shrimp over. You start to see your garlic burn, then turn your heat down a little bit. But if you keep it moving, you should be alright. We're really only cooking these shrimp for maybe about 1.5 minutes, if that. These will be going back in a little bit, so don't worry. I think it's not fully cooked. Shrimp really doesn't take that long anyway, so 1.5 minutes the first time should be good. Alright, get a plate. And alright, just set those aside for a minute, and now we're going to add our white wine. We're going to do 1/2 cup of white wine. Try not to let that garlic burn. This will help out though. Alright. Get the white wine going, and then we're going to take about 1 teaspoon of butter. And just kind of cut it into little pieces. Don't throw it all in at once. I want it to slow melt in there. So at this point you have the butter, the white wine, the garlic, and we're just going to kind of reduce this down a little bit. Alright, so turn your temperature down and just kind of let that wine cook down. We're going to kind of try to get a sauce going, and then we're going to put the lid on, let it cook down for a little bit, and then we're going to add the shrimp back in there. Alright, so kind of looking for a creamy consistency. If you really don't have it, then just get a little more butter. Alright, so while that is cooking down, we're going to get some other ingredients together to put in there. These ingredients are really going to add the flavor of that sauce that the shrimp is going to go back into. So get some parsley, just take a kind of handful there. There's really no measurement, just kind of enough to make it look green. Just do a rough chop to it. It's alright if you get some of the stems in there. Alright, so we're going to put that in the mixture. Red pepper flakes. This kind of just depends on how spicy you want it. It's not going to give it too much spice, but it's certainly going to add some flavor. So a little, a lot, just depends on how much you can handle. Alright, and then the final ingredient, we're going to put some black pepper, crushed black pepper in here. Oh, it smells so good. Whew! It's kind of getting the creamy consistency. The wine has cooked down. And we'll just put the shrimp back. At this point, just kind of mix it together. Really coat the shrimp. Again, that first time we cooked the shrimp, it pretty much cooked them through, and then while they were resting, they were still cooking. So if they have kind of that transparent, translucent consistency, that's good. I'm gonna let these sit for just a little longer. Put the lid back on here for a little bit. Okay, so again, you leave the skin on. You could easily cook it with, or I'm sorry, the shells. You could easily leave the shells on, but this is actually a recipe called gambas a la plancha. It's a Spanish recipe. I think it means prawns on the iron. Didn't use prawns because they didn't have any. They also are usually, the recipe calls for you to leave the heads on the prawns as well and just cook them whole, but really you can do any version of a shrimp, I suppose. Alright, so once those kind of cook down a little bit, just grab a plate. Looks so fucking good. I hope they're... So, you could let them cool, or you can really just dig right into them. Let's see, let's give one of these guys a taste. Take the tail off. Oh, that's so good. It's gonna be hot. Oh, huh. That's a good gambas a la plancha. Delicious, let me tell you. Well, there you have it, folks. That's gambas a la plancha. Get a little sourdough bread or something. Kind of dip around. All right, coming up next, we're gonna get back to the gingerbread men, throw them in the oven, and start decorating them. What was that? Little accident here. It just kind of stuck to the surface, so clean it up as best we can. Let me try some parchment paper. See if that'll roll it out better. Just kind of ball it together. Hopefully this time it doesn't split. Alright, so we have decided to scrap the whole gingerbread men idea and just make little gingerbread balls. due to the consistency, it's very sticky. So normally that doesn't happen, but sometimes you have to improvise in the kitchen. So if you want to join me and make little gingerbread balls, all you need to do is just get a little bit of it in your hand and then roll it into a ball. And then on the cookie sheet it goes. And there we go. Again, it doesn't have to be a gingerbread man just to make gingerbread cookies. You can make all different shapes and sizes, and snowmen people and little balls. It all tastes the same. So in the oven it goes, 350 for about 8 to 10 minutes. Because I'm cleaning with Kyle. Ladies fast size 2. Alright, so it's time to take the cookies out. You can see that they've spread out tremendously, but that's okay. Alright, so get yourself a cooling rack. It just works better than like a plate or something like that. They'll cool on a plate, so if you don't have a cooling rack, don't worry about it, but it just helps cool them a little easier. Alright, and just let these cool for probably about 10 minutes or so. You'll be able to feel if they're cool or not before you put the icing on. Put the icing on right now, it's just going to melt and run together, and you won't be able to really tell anything. So we're going to let these cool for a little bit, and then we're going to put the icing back on. Alright, so once you had your gingerbread cookies cool, then of course it's time to apply the icing, and that's where you can get creative here. So you can go everything from the classic Christmas kind of stuff, the snowman, and then get real creative and add some leisure sport activities in there, and also an ode to contemporary art. So really you can get creative at this point, but most importantly, the best part is to enjoy. Merry Christmas!
All right, man. I'm gonna go to the crib, man. My stomach hurt.